morning everybody, welcome to episode 43 of the Pins and Needles podcast. My goodness, it's been a while. My name is Zoe. You can find me on Instagram and on Ravelry as Pins and Needles UK. And we do have a Ravelry group for the podcast, so if you're interested you can head over there and join us for chats. If you want to email me, you can do so at hipinsandneedles@gmail.com, or you can direct message me on Ravelry or Instagram. I will leave links down below to everything that I talk about. I'll also leave links to my newsletter to sign up to if you're interested in hearing about my designs. And just a quick note at the top of the episode to say there are a few places left on the Summer 2019 Knit Tea Retreat. For any of you that don't know, my friend Jennie of Owl About Yarn and I organise knitting retreats. We've got our first one coming up in October this year, which is fully sold out. And we recently opened bookings for summer 2019. And there's literally, I think there might be 5 spots left. So if you're interested, again, I'll leave links to everything down below. There'll also be timestamps down there. So if you want to skip between sections, you can absolutely do that and check it out. Now, it's been, as I said, quite a while. It is Friday the 24th of August and I'm in my pyjamas. It's about 20 past 7 in the morning and this is the only time I could think of when I would have enough clear space to record an episode because I've got all sorts of things going on. I'll update you with all of my life bits and pieces at the very end of the episode so we can dive straight into the knitting content. But yeah, so if I'm looking a little dishevelled, I've literally got out of bed, set my lights up, gathered my bits and pieces, put a cardigan on so you don't have to look at me in a vest. And this is my first cup of tea. So a nice thing about this mug is it's got a little sheep on the inside. So if you get the level of the tea right, you see his little sippy face, it looks like he's drinking your tea. At some point I will have to pause recording and pour a second cup because it's early. Okay, let's go straight into knitting. As you can see, I have Demelza the dummy with me today, and she is wearing my Carbeth cardigan. This is a design by Kate Davies. Kate Davies Designs, that's her company name. And I actually finished this quite a while ago, but the weather in Wales has been apocalyptically hot. It's been hotter than Satan's armpit. It really has been unbearable. So there was no way I was going to model this in sort of 30 degrees of heat. But it did make for lovely blocking weather. So given that this is a bulky weight jumper, it dried in maybe 4 or 5 hours. What I'm going to do is just move the camera a little bit so that you can see the full gloriousness. There we go. So I bought the yarn from this when I was at the Edinburgh Yarn Festival in March, and it's Blåne from Hillersvåg. It's in colourway 2105 Petrol. There's the label. And I bought this from Estelle at Midwinter Yarns. Now, if you're interested in trying Scandinavian yarns, and look, that's a little picture of the mill on the back. If you're interested in trying Scandinavian yarns, Estelle has an absolutely fantastic collection of yarns. She has, they're commercial yarns, but Scandinavian commercial yarns are a very different beast to European commercial yarns. And so they've got some really nice different woolly wools to use, gorgeous colours. The sheep that this comes from, she did tell me the name of it, but I can't remember, is naturally grey. So when you dye over the top of that, it gives you this really rich colour. Anyway, Carbeth cardigan, super quick. I used 6 skeins of yarn. You knit it on 6.5mm needles. I did make a few modifications. Any new viewers, welcome, by the way. Thank you for joining us. I'm 6'1", so I have to add extra length to absolutely everything. And this was designed to be a cropped jumper. So from the cast on edge to where you start joining in the sleeves was only 8 inches. And that would have been a crop top, not a cropped jumper. So I think I knitted it to 11 or 12 inches, thinking, well, I can always block it a bit longer or leave it as it is, because it's 100% wool, which gives you some leeway when you get to that point. So I knit the body a little longer. Because of my weightlifting arm circumference, I made the neck size up for the sleeves, but that was absolutely fine because the number of stitches that you put on hold for the body and the sleeves were the same for the one size below body and the one size up sleeves, but it wouldn't have been difficult to finagle that. And as you can see, the decrease for the yoke, you actually keep the sleeve stitch count exactly the same and you decrease the body stitch count, and it gives you this lovely line here on the yoke. A fantastic rolled collar. I think I didn't quite have enough yarn to do the full number of rows. I think I did 2 fewer. And then to give it this nice wide shape, when it's there's a silly little video on one of my Instagram posts of me as soon as I'd cast it off, and I'm jumping up to the camera to try and show you. And you can see on that it's quite a turtleneck collar, which I liked very much, but the style is to have this wider collar. And again, you do that in the blocking. They just suggest that you put a dinner plate. You turn the collar down and you put a dinner plate in so it stretches it out. So it's not quite a boat neck, but it's not supposed to sit right against your throat. So I'm absolutely thrilled with this. And I was so thrilled I couldn't bear to put it away. So it's been sat on Demelza the dummy since I finished it, which must be several weeks. And I have to say, it occurred to me a few weeks ago, what if I'm stretching it out? What if all of that wool, you know, because the seam line is here, it's a, well, this isn't a seam line, this is a decrease line. So there are no structural seam lines in here. And I was suddenly panicked that just because I wanted to look at my nice new jumper, I couldn't leave it on the dummy to do that because the weight would pull it all down. But it's been absolutely fine, absolutely fine. Possibly the decrease lines might have been half an inch further up, maybe, but that's partly how it's sat on the dummy. So yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled with that. I have got, sorry, I'm faffing with my cardigan. I have got a Ravelry project page for everything that I talk about. So if you want to go and see the particular size that I made, you can go and have a look at that. And I have put the information for it down below. So yeah, such a fun knit. It was super fast. If you're interested in seeing others, if you have a look on Instagram and you search for #bangoutaCarbeth, people are doing this in a week, literally a week. It's fantastic. And yeah, people are either using bulky or they're holding DK weight doubled. So it's a good stash buster as well. Okay, I'm going to twizzle you back round. Thank you, Demelza. There we go. And grab my tea again. I can just hear my eldest son in the background, so apologies if there's teenage noises, but it's the summer holidays, so it's all a bit by and large. Next up, I have another finished object. I don't think I have the yarn label for these though. This is just a pair, it is a pair, of plain vanilla socks. I just did a 2x2 rib, a 6-inch leg, heel flap and turn, and then a standard wedge toe. Nothing terribly exciting to say about these. Jennie very kindly bought me the yarn when she went to Fibre East, and it is, I haven't used it before, it's Grundl, G-R-U-N-D-L, Grundl Hot Socks, Pearl, Mitt Cashmere. It actually says Mitt Cashmere on the label. I think it's like maybe 5%, in colour number 4. And I have to say, it was lovely to knit with. It is really soft. It does have nylon in it as well. I think it's 20% nylon. So I'll be interested to see how these hold up. And these are just my sock blockers. I've got some Knit Picks blue plastic sock blockers, but I needed more. So I bought dirt cheap £1 IKEA placemats, drew round them and made myself cheap sock blockers. So that's an idea worth considering. And my glass is reflecting really badly with the light. I think you might just have to live with it because it's, like I said, it's early. The other finished object I had to show you, I can't actually show you, I'm afraid. I did a test knit for a friend of mine, lovely lady called Helena Timms, who I know from working the show circuit because she works for John Arbon down in Devon. And we usually do some sort of cake swap. She's good at flapjacks, I usually have Welsh cakes. And she's just tons of fun. And she is also a designer. So she asked me if I would test knit her latest, well, she's got so many designs on the go at the moment, but she asked me if I would mind testing her new hat pattern, and I did. That's called the Devon Mariner hat, and it is now out. I think it's being published in Knitting magazine, and I'm sure she'll make it available on Ravelry as soon as she can. I knit it in a skein of black and blue, which is the 100% BFL yarn that's hand dyed by Estelle of Midwinter. And I will insert a photograph of me wearing it. It was a lovely knit, I really enjoyed it, but I have now sent it off to a friend as a birthday gift, so that's why I can't wave it at you, so I'll put a photograph in here instead. The colourway is Wizard's Hem, and as you can see, it's a lovely fisherman's rib with a 12-stitch cable up one side. So squishy. As for what's currently on my needles, I only cast the socks off just the other day, and my knitting time is incredibly limited, so I don't have, I think I've only got, well, I've got one active whip and one thing that I'm going to frog as soon as I've talked to you about it. So let's start with the active whip. Any of you that have been watching since my first January, well, my first episode of this current year, in January I did a massive turn out of my stash. I tip everything out onto my bed and I make sure all my Ravelry database is correct. And I decided to plan out what I was going to knit this year. And then I bagged up the yarn for all those projects and put it in a separate box. I've got two IKEA boxes, one small cube that lives in my bedroom, and I put all the yarn I was going to use this year into that little cube, and then the rest went into, I've got like a blanket box sized chest from IKEA, and I put the remainder of the other yarn in there. It's not full, I just want to make that clear. I don't have a blanket box full of yarn. So I needed a new cast on, so I went and had a look at my queue. If you're interested to see what I chose, head over and find me on Ravelry. I'm Pins and Needles UK there. And if you go to my queue, I created a little 2018 tab and I queued, I think, 11 patterns that I wanted to make this year. A combination of things for me and gifts for other people. So I went and checked that list because I knew that I had easy access to the yarn. And the pattern I went with is a free pattern, and it's the Chilli Podster Mitts by Glenna C. Now she has two versions of this. She has the Podster Mitts, which I've already knitted, and that's in a fingering weight yarn. And then she has the Chilli Podster Mitts, which is the same thing, but in a worsted weight. So they're convertible flip-top mittens with proper fingers. And this is something I wanted to knit for Dave, my husband. Back in March, we had freak weather conditions in the UK and we had a massive amount of snow. Pretty much everybody was snowed in everywhere, and we live right on the coast in South Wales. I can walk to the beach in 2 minutes. So we very rarely get snow. We had 3 or 4 foot of it. It was really quite something. And so when Dave was out in the snow trying to clear the pavement, he borrowed my alpaca. I've got some stranded alpaca mitts, which also have a lining. So there's sort of 4 layers of alpaca, and he absolutely loved them. They're more like oven gloves than mittens. and Dave has quite bad circulation. And so I thought that we don't need anything quite that warm usually, but I thought a pair of worsted weight flip top mittens would be great because he does get cold hands, and it's a lot faster than knitting him socks because he's got huge feet. Anyway. So I had this yarn pulled out ready in a Ziploc bag in my 2018 stash. And this is some of the oldest yarn in my stash. It's lovely, and I was really pleased to be able to use it. It's Bergere de France Berlaine. 50 grams gives you 90 metres or 98 yards. It's 100% wool, although it doesn't specify what sort of yarn. And it's in the colourway Violine. That's my best French accent. And there we are. Now I bought this from what at the time was my local yarn store. It was, at the time, there was a shop called Big Knitters just across from where I worked. And I bought this for £2.99 a ball. Still got the sticker on the back, like £2.99. And it's lovely. It's sort of a grey purple. So I did check that he liked the colour. That's coming up quite accurate. And he said, yes, he did. And it's an exact match in wraps per inch for the yarn recommended in the pattern. Now, this pattern comes in two sizes, small and large. The small is to fit a hand circumference, so the distance around this part of your hand, of 7.25 inches. And the large is 8.25 inch circumference. Well, that's no good. My husband is also a weightlifter, and he has large hands, and he has, they're thick this way because there's huge amounts of strength and muscle in them. And I needed to size this up. So rather than rejig the numbers, the pattern suggests you use 3.25mm needles, which is a very small needle size for worsted weight yarn. Obviously she just wants a nice dense fabric. So I sized up to do a 4mm needle, and I thought, well, I'll just see how that comes out. And I made a bit of progress on the first one. Oh, this is a project bag that I made myself. And isn't it cute? I'm ready for autumn. I'm so ready for autumn. So I dug out my most autumny project bag, and it's just a drawstring with this contrast spotty on the top. And I absolutely love it. That was a smaller side. Anyway, show you the knitting. I'm magic looping it because I get terrible ladders with DPNs. Okay, so this is how far I've got. So I've done a 2x2 rib at the bottom, and it's just plain stocking stitch. Actually I could put it on. That would make it a bit easier, wouldn't it? I'm feeling a bit out of practice at doing this. It's been so long. There we are. And I've completed thumb gusset. I think I've only done 1 or 2 rounds, having done the thumb gusset. So that's on waste yarn ready to go. And as you can see, it's a little bit too big for me, which is perfect. It means that it will be a nice snug fit on Dave. And I think I've got a couple more rows to do, and then I start doing the separate fingers. So I need to hunt out my DPNs to do that because I'm not magic looping a tiny number of stitches. But yeah, these are coming out really, really well. I do seem to have 1 stitch less than I need at this point. Because I went up quite a lot on the needle size, I was a bit concerned about my row gauge. Now, although my hands are the same length as my husband's, even though his are thicker, so I just sort of, for the thumb increases, I didn't do as many plain rows of knitting in between the increases. I just kept trying it on as I went. But I remembered to keep a note on my pattern so I can make the second one to match. And that progress keeper That's just a little tiny jumper, can you see? I got that from Atomic Knitting ages ago. When I do magic loop, I don't like having the beginning of round marker actually on my needle because it's just a pain. It flaps around, and particularly if you're doing increases and you need other stitch markers, it's just a bit of a pain. So I always just clip it on the fabric of the front needle so I know where I am. Yes, I'm enjoying those, and they are a nice quick knit, and then it will be one thing ticked off my 2018 to knit list. And it's Dave's birthday in October, 6th of October, Dave's birthday. So I'd like to get those done in time for that. And yeah, really enjoying my project bag. The other whip I've got that I haven't touched for weeks. Excuse me leaning, I had to put my teacup down. Is a sock. Actually, bear with me for one moment while I steal a sock blocker. Okay. Rummage, rummage, rummage. I decided to knit myself a pair of plain vanilla socks out of some Knit Picks Felici yarn in the colour 27081. I don't know if it has a snazzy name. That's all that was written on the label. Felici comes in 50-gram balls. And this is lovely. Again, this is a present from Jennie. She's ever so good to me. Now, I really like the fit of a heel flap and gusset. Completely standard, top down, heel flap and gusset. It fits me beautifully. I know exactly how to do it. I never need to look up any of the numbers. It's in my head. It falls off my needles. But as I'm sure you know, that can interrupt the stripe if you have a self-striping yarn. And I had heard all of the fuss about Susan B. Anderson's SOS sock. And I thought, ugh. Felici's, not easy to get in the UK. So I really wanted to make a lovely pair of socks from this. And I thought maybe I should try a different heel to see if I could preserve the stripes. Now, every time I've tried a different heel construction, I've managed to do it perfectly adequately, and they never fit me as well as a heel flap and gusset. And also it's far more faffing about because I have to read the instructions because it's new to me. And it turns out what I like from a sock is the fact that I don't have to think. Okay, so Susan B. Anderson SOS sock pattern, you can get it on Ravelry. It does cost some money, not a frightening amount, but it's certainly not cheap. And I really wish I hadn't bothered. I knit one sock, okay? This is it. This is the wrong size sock blocker. That's why it's looking a little baggy. Perhaps if I turn it that way, there we go. So as you can see, the yarn is absolutely beautiful. And it really doesn't fit me at all. It's really, really bad. And I'm ripping this thing out and I'm cross. I think the problem is I didn't understand what this pattern was. I thought everyone was saying about all the tips and tricks she has in the pattern for making the stripes work really well. And in my head, I thought she had some amazing new technique that would make an afterthought heel actually fit your damn foot. But I was wrong. What it is a fantastically well written, incredibly detailed pattern with a lot of outstanding photographs on how to knit an afterthought heel. But that's all it is. So if you've never knit one, go by the pattern, it's great. You'll end up with a sock that probably won't fit you very well, but that's not the point. She does have a couple of tricks and suggestions to do with how to start casting on your sock so that you can cast on a second one to match, where to place the temporary yarn to mark the position for your afterthought heel. So, there's some interesting tips, but I don't want to pay £6 for a couple of tips. She does also include one of those tips and tricks, and I won't tell you what it is because it's a paid for pattern, but one of those tips and tricks is how to avoid getting a little hole at the edge of your heel. Well, it's a faff for a start, and it didn't bleeding well work. I don't know if you can see, but there's quite a noticeable hole there, and quite a noticeable hole there. And when I do my heel flap and gusset socks, all I do is pick up one extra stitch between the stitches at the top of the foot and the edge of the heel flap, knit it through the back loop, decrease it away, perfect. Holes, holes. Now, yeah, she has this super magic technique that doesn't work for not getting a hole, and then you knit a heel that's shaped like a toe, and I don't know about you, but my toe and my heel are completely different shapes, so yeah, really doesn't fit me, and I feel like I've wasted a lot of time. The only suggestion she makes, and it's not a unique suggestion, so I can share it with you, is that if you are doing an afterthought heel, knit the leg, put the waist yarn in where you want your heel to be, and then knit a few inches of the foot, and then put your heel in. So don't knit all of the foot and do the toe and then put the heel in, just knit halfway and then do the heel, and it just enables you to get an accurate measurement for the length of the foot, which is the other reason I don't like afterthought heels. So is it worth the money, the pattern? If you don't know how to do an afterthought heel, it's an expensive but excellent pattern. If what you want is tips and tricks to make an afterthought short row heel fit your foot, don't bother, just go and knit a heel flap and gusset sock and put in a contrast yarn for the heel, and then just wind a bit of extra yarn off before you start down the foot. So yeah, I'm going to pull these out. I'm going to rip it back all the way to the leg, put it back on the needles, and just, I think I've actually got some pink that I could use for contrast heels, so I might do that. But as I said, I've finished my other pair of vanillas, so once I've ripped these out, that can be my next project. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed about that, to be honest, but hey ho. Oh, and Linda, if you're watching, hello Linda, this is the sock where I was trying double pointed needles, and look, can you see the ladders? I don't know if you can see the ladders. I tried knitting on 3 and using a 4th, and I tried knitting on 4 and knitting with the 5th, but all I did with that was get more ladders, so you can see. I don't think it's going to be terribly noticeable once I've actually washed the sock, and I do prefer knitting with DPNs, so I might well carry on with that. Sock failure. Oh, and I have this in my cheeky Harry Potter sock sack, which is by Thimble and Thread Make. Lovely Tracy of Thimble and Thread Make. So that's it for knitting. I do need a new cast on. I need to go back to my list, and I'm torn between a super lacy shawl or a colourwork yoked jumper. I've got the yarn and the pattern for both. It's just a question of brain power. It's rather lacking at the moment, so I will have to take a view on that. I'm going to have a quick break because I need to go and fill my cup of tea. I'll be back in a minute with some sewing. Okay, I'm back. Oh, as I said, it's early. I need 2 cups at least. I have managed to do some sewing. I should probably have swapped it over on Demelza. So the last time we spoke, I think I was planning to make a York pinafore by Helen's Closet, or maybe I'd started it, I can't quite remember. And I have nearly finished it, but it hasn't been without its challenges. Let me grab the pile of stuff. Okay, so for people that don't know the pattern, this is it. So it's a very simple pinafore dress, 2 different versions. One with a very deep neck and patch pockets, and then one with a higher neck and a kangaroo pouch at the front. It's an easy pattern to sew. It's a front piece, a back piece, pockets, and you use bias binding. I This is the second Helen's Closet pattern I've made. I did also make her Blackwood cardigan, and the instructions are really, really good. She uses illustrations. They're really clear. And one thing I was very impressed with this pattern is there's a lot of detail at the beginning, grading between sizes, assessing the fit, really, really good. And yet somehow I still didn't get it right. I did my measurements and I decided that I needed an XL for the bodice and a 2XL for my hips. I often have to grade out an extra size for my hips. That's absolutely fine. And she has some nice tips in here for if you are taller than the model block, how to add that extra length. So she said the pattern was drafted for someone that was 5'6" and I am 6'2". And she says, generally you want to add or remove the difference between your height and the height for which the pattern was drafted, divided by 2. So for example, you're 5'9" and the pattern was drafted for somebody 5'6", which means the difference is 3 inches. Lengthen the pattern a total of 1.5 inches. Now I am 8 inches taller than 5'6", which means I needed to add 4 inches. So I added 2 inches at the lower bodice line, and I decided to lower the scoop at the front. The scoop at the front is supposed to hit just below your collarbones. And again, because I'm tall, it was a little higher and I didn't want it to be choky. So I lowered that. And I think I just added an extra inch on the bottom. A lot of my height is in my body. I don't have particularly long legs. So yes, I did an XL bodice and an XXL waist and hip. Now, as you can see from the front, it's got very deep armholes that are supposed to finish at your waist, and it's got like a cocoon shape to the skirt. When I came to choosing the size for my hips, the XL didn't give me enough positive ease, but the 2XL gave me way too much, like 5 or 6 inches too much. So I suspected that even though I was going to cut the XXL for the hips, I would have to take it in, you know, just use a much larger seam allowance. So I bought the PDF pattern, so I traced it off. Oh, and I rather handily made notes. So I graded out from the XL neckline to the XS neckline. So between those 2 points, I graded out from one size to the other. As you can see, it doesn't look unusual. And here you can see where I added the extra length into the bodice part. And then that's just the rest of my pattern piece. It comes in 2 different lengths and I cut the longer length, which would have been about right for me. Oh, I need more tea. So much chatting. And I have very nearly finished. So here we are. This is how far I've got. So this is some lightweight denim. Definitely denim and not a chambray, which I bought from Minerva Crafts. It's a sort of a charcoaly black, which I thought would be quite handy for autumn. Really nice to work with, you know, it presses well because it's 100% cotton. So as you can see, I've batch done the bias binding. I'm at the point now where I need to press it and turn it to the inside so that you won't actually see it from the outside. I have done the kangaroo pouch pocket at the front, and this has got bias bound edges as well. I used purple. For the bias binding, I was just using whatever I had in my stash. So I've got a little bit of purple, and then the pink is the bias binding that I saved from my grandmother's old tablecloth. And there is the patch pocket. And I have to say, this is the very first time I've done proper contrast top stitching. So this is top stitching thread like you would use for jeans. And it's not super tidy, but I'm pretty impressed with it for my first time. But as you can see, I forgot that when I top stitched down the bias binding, I should have put top stitching thread in the machine for that. So they're not top stitched, but it doesn't matter. When I come to top stitch down the bias binding, I will put pink thread in my bobbin, and I will use the gold top stitching on the top of my machine so that you'll get decorative on the top and kind of invisible underneath. Okay, so I made the XL bodice and the 2XL skirt, and I put it on, and it was so huge, I can't even begin to tell you. This is supposed to sit at your waist, and it was a little bit lower than I needed, so I just took the shoulder seams in a bit. But it was vast, absolutely vast, and the hips were so enormous that when I was wearing it, the fabric was pointing forwards. It was just there was so much of it, it was pulling, and I had a massive sort of ridge down the front and the back. And it made me look 4 times larger than I actually was. So I knew I would have to take it in a bit. So I think I took an extra ½ inch in on the seam allowance, which by the time you've done that all the way around, it takes it in 2 inches, and it was still huge. So in the end, I undid the side seams, which I had fortunately only basted. I hadn't used the correct stitch length. On purpose, I might add, because I knew I'd have to finagle it. So I took the side seams out, and I retraced my tracing paper pattern pieces, and I decided to just cut it down a whole size and cut it down to XL to match the bodice. And I got it wrong because I was really cross, and I actually cut it down to an L. I cut it down to a large, which was 2 sizes smaller than I should have done. And actually it fits. It's a tiny little bit snug, but I am in the process of losing some weight, so it's going to fit beautifully. So yeah, I ended up hacking about 4 inches of width off it, which was an awful lot more than I was expecting. But it seems to fit much better. I did also take the sides where that deep scoop hits your waist. I jumped on Instagram and had a check to see how much positive ease other people had. And although it hits quite low on your waist, it is actually supposed to be only a little bit of positive ease there. So I took that in as well. So, I mean, it was an easy fix. It wasn't a pain to do. I was just a bit cross because I'd selected the size suggested. I'd used her fitting tips, and yet still there was room for a friend. Anyway, I haven't managed to find the time to sew for a couple of weeks, so I need to press the bias binding, stitch it down, do the hem, and then it's done. And I think I'm going to get loads of use out of it. Excuse me. I can see me wearing it over long sleeve t-shirts and over my pavement cardigan, my pavement jumper into autumn, and, you know, tights and leggings underneath. So I'm really pleased with that. I will hopefully be wearing that next time I podcast. I have got my next sewing project planned. I've got a pattern from one of the big 4 makers for a really simple Ponte Roma tunic dress with pockets. It's got a V-neck, I think. So I'm going to cut that out in some lovely mustard Ponte Roma that I've had in my stash for a while. I'm going to measure the pattern pieces because the big 4 also have a huge amount of ease. Yeah, that's it for sewing, I think. Next up is stash acquisition. Now, this is a rather humbling section. I've been somewhat overwhelmed with gifts. So of all of the things that I'm about to show you, I've been super lucky, and they've all been given to me as presents, apart from the very first thing. I mentioned before that Jennie went to Fibre East. She took her Owl About yarn and bags and stitch markers and fibre all the way down to Fibre East, and unfortunately I couldn't go with her to help. she took her son instead. But she video called me and gave me a quick tour of Fibre East because I've never been. And if any of you in the UK remember Annika Rice, that's what she was like. She was dashing around. Has anybody got a pink clue? Do you remember that? Annika Rice and her jumpsuits? Anyway, so I really enjoyed that because I was quite disappointed I couldn't go. But opposite Jennie's Owl About Yarn stand was a needle felting stand called feltanddandy.co.uk. And for the Knit Tea retreat, we're doing a series of knit-alongs connected to the tutors that are working with us in October. And we're on to our final knit-along, which is inspired by the work of Emma Bevan from Folky Felt, who is she's based in Wales, she's based in Brecon, and she does the most beautiful needle art, 3D sort of sculptural pieces, flat lay landscapes, absolutely stunning stuff. So we're having a make-along based on that, and it can be either needle felting or it can be anything inspired by nature, because nature is the theme of Emma's work. So I needed something to needle felt because I've never done it before, and Jennie kindly took my pattern designs down to sell, and she sold enough of them that she used my money on my request to buy me a bumblebee kit. So there's enough fluff in here to make 6 bumblebees, and you get all the fluff in the box. You get the little protective mat, and you get a little tube, and it's got all the needles, and the bees have crowns. So obviously I have crowns. There's a little bit of clear thread, I don't know if you can see that on there, so that you can hang your bees up. And absolutely loads of instructions with lots of photographs on. So that's what I'm going to be doing. My mum is coming down today to help out because summer holidays are insane. So she has got a needle felting kit she bought years ago and has never used. So we're going to have a go at needle felting, and then we'll have somebody on hand to plaster our fingers up. Yeah, so that's my bumblebee felting kit. And again, because Jennie was also sad I wasn't there at Fibre East, she bought me the sock yarn for the finished socks. And she also dropped over to Yarnistry, and she does these gumball machines, and she bought me one of those. Oh, I think I left the pin upstairs. And you put a coin in the gumball machine, and it's just potluck which one comes out. And the one she bought for me has a little mini skein from Truly Hooked, so that will go into my blanket. And it has a little set of Yarnistry stitch markers. Hang on a sec, I'm all fingers and thumbs here. So I've got a little beaver. I've got an orange, oh, hang on a sec. I've got an orange dinosaur. That one's a little cocktail glass. And then my favourite, it's quite see-through, a little plastic sheep. And there was also in here a little pin, and it looks like a green gin bottle. And on the label on the bottle it says knitting and gin. Oh, 2 of my favourite things. So that all came in this little ball. And also Jennie made soap, and she needle felted some fluff over the top. So she made a different coloured one for each member of her family so everyone knows whose is whose. And she made me this one. Isn't that lovely? I haven't used it yet because I wanted to keep it nice to show you. And I can't remember which fragrance she put essential oils in. It smells really nice. But isn't that pretty? So I'm looking forward to trying that. I want to try making my own soap. I'm on a quest to get single-use plastic out of my bathroom. So we've moved from, you know, pump dispenser of hand wash to normal bar soap. But the normal bar soap is quite drying, and I suspect this would be much more moisturising because of all the oil in it. So I'm going to have a go at that myself. So those are my presents from Jennie. Thank you, Jennie. Okay, I need to finish my tea because this next one is going to take some handling. I had a message on Instagram from a lovely lady called Terina, who said that she really enjoyed my podcast, which was very kind of her to say. And could she possibly send me a skein of yarn as a thank you? And I said, well, goodness, you don't have to do that, but that would be lovely, thank you. And like the last lady who said she would like to send me a skein of yarn, she sent me a huge thumping great big bag of yarn. So I always give people my work address because the road I live on Barry Island, there's 2 roads with the same name on the island that are not physically connected. They used to be years ago, but not anymore. So it's not unusual for my post to go astray. So it's just easier if I give my work email address. So I got to work to find an absolutely enormous bag, and I thought, my goodness, what's that? And it was this one skein of yarn that I'd been sent, and I was just completely blown away. Thank you so much, Terina. And the yarn is just gorgeous. There was 2 skeins of green and purple Lorna's Laces shepherd sock, which I let Jennie choose something from the bag because she'd helped me out a lot. So she chose some of that. So I hope you don't mind that I'm spreading the love, Terina. And there was this, look at that. And this is Dreaming Color Starry sock weight. And it's in the colourway Grey Tabby. Absolutely beautiful yarn. And this I have put up to be a prize for the folky felt knit along that we're doing in the retreat group. By the way, that knit along is open to absolutely anybody. You don't have to be coming on the retreat. So if you want to join in, do head over to the Knit Tea Retreat Ravelry group. All of the details are in there. So yes, there's this beautiful skein. It's going to be crinkling, for which I refuse to apologise. She sent me 2 skeins of Regia. Is that going to focus? There we go. I love Regia. I have a soft spot in my heart for sturdy German sock yarn. And this is colourway 04255. And I love it. I love the autumn colours and then the pop of blue. So there's 2 skeins of that. Another Dreaming Colour smooshy sock yarn. And this is Good Luck Jade colourway. Now I'm hoping this will, is it 100% merino? Yes, 100% superfine Australian superwash merino. Dreaming Colour is an American brand of yarn, so it's not, I don't know if you can get it in the UK. It wouldn't be easy to find. And obviously if you order it from the States, you get hit with massive customs charges and VAT. But look, it is just the most beautiful forest green with grey brown yarn, and it's obviously merino, so it's so smooth. This needs to be something with a leaf pattern on it, and it needs to be around my neck. It's so beautiful. So there's that one. Now, I live in Wales, and there is an indie yarn dyer called Posh Yarn who also lives in Wales, and she has the most beautiful yarn, and it's almost impossible to get hold of. She's so popular that when her updates go live, unless you're sat in front of your computer and you've got the reaction time of Linford Christie, you don't have a chance of getting a skein. So she sent me huge amounts of Posh yarn as well, which I'm just thrilled with. So this is Posh Yarn, and it is Eliza, which is their superwash merino 75-25 sock yarn. And this colourway is called Hearing Without Listening. And I'm not sure what this colour is. It's just so subtle and beautiful. It's looking purple. It's really not purple. It's a similar it looks completely different there, but they're actually quite similar in real life. It's kind of a steel grey-green colour. It's not lilac, but that's beautiful as well. So yeah, that's going to be socks at some point, I think. And then last but by no means least, she sent me 4 skeins of Posh Yarn Martha, which is 80% merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon. And this is in the colourway Somebody Needs Their Nap. And again, it's a lilac grey. Oh, that's coming up quite accurately. So 4 skeins of this is more than enough for a jumper. So I could knit another pavement jumper or something like that. And it's just, I mean, I love the colour. It's super soft. And I've never, apart from that sock yarn, I've never knit with anything that's got cashmere in it. So I'm just blown away by your generosity, Terina. Thank you so very much. And I'm glad I finally got to show everybody on the podcast because it really is such beautiful yarn. And I love that the Posh Yarn is a Welsh indie dyer as well. So maybe I'll try and do some designing with it. Welsh yarn, Welsh designer in Wales. We shall see. So there we are. That is all of my stash acquisition. There will be a short rummage while I put everything back in the bag. So that's the end of the crafty content. If that's all you're interested in, thank you very much for watching and I will catch you next time. But I did want to give you a little bit of an update why I've been away for so long, because I think I'm a month overdue for an episode now. But I really haven't had the opportunity. Okay, so my children are on summer holidays. I have 3 children. Conrad's 14, Jocelyn is 12, and Max is 11. And they're all on school holidays. I think we've got about 10 days left. And I struggle with summer because Dave and I are self-employed and we don't have a large number of staff. So getting time off over summer is very difficult, if not impossible. So I spend my summer months feeling like I'm not doing anything right. I'm not spending enough time on the business and I'm not making sure that my children have a nice summer holiday. So I've never really enjoyed summer. And coupled with the fact that it has been just apocalyptically hot. It's been 28 degrees for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I know I'm ginger. We don't like it. It's not been a brilliant couple of weeks one way and another. And I caught tonsillitis. I had amazing tonsillitis and I was sick for weeks, but I had to keep on working and juggling the kids. And I couldn't have recorded because I was coughing until I was sick. And whilst I was in the middle of suffering with tonsillitis, I had to repaint an entire house. We have a house that we rent out to university students, and the most recent lot of tenants left it in a disgusting state. So I was sweating with the temperature, painting walls and trying to get that cleared. Ooh, Jennie and her whole family came to help us paint, and that was why I gave her yarn. Just remembered that's why I gave her yarn. I couldn't have managed it without her. So that took up well over a week because I was trying to juggle with working my shifts and getting the house painted. And, you know, obviously I can't leave all of the kids alone. So they were having to come in with me, which, you know, isn't terribly much fun. And then we've had a huge amount of car trouble. We've got 2 cars, which we need because we live 40 minutes from work. And my car, I've got a little Polo, has been in and out of the garage 4 times. And at one point, Dave's car was in as well. So we were down to 0 cars. Now we can catch the train into work, but if you start early, if you're on shift to open the gym up, you have to catch the 10 to 6 train, and it's a 40-minute train ride and a 20-minute walk the other end, and it just makes everything more difficult. So we were trying to juggle getting the student house painted and working and the kids, and I had tonsillitis and we didn't have a car, so everything was taking us twice as long and it was an absolute nightmare. My car, Dave's was fixed and back, but mine has been in and out 4 times and it's just a colossal pain in the neck. I haven't been able to take the children out on day trips because I haven't been able to get anywhere. Obviously it costs money and it's just extended my working day by an hour either end, which has been a real pain. In good news, I'm also working on, for people that don't know, my husband and I own a gym in Cardiff. That's what we do. Dave does a huge amount of personal training, and I've always done the other side, like the admin side of the business. But recently we've decided I shall do some personal training too, for which you need to be qualified. So whilst all of this has been going on, I've also been working on my level 2 gym instructor's qualification, which I have now nearly finished. So I've had some exams and I've had lots of worksheets and lots of learning to do. And I've got one more exam and one practical. But I'm already starting on my level 3 personal training stuff, which I have to complete in about 6 weeks. The whole thing. It's an NVQ3 level qualification. There's a lot of anatomy and physiology. There's a lot of nutrition in there. So as well as all of the above, I'm trying to study and cram facts into my brain. So that's quite hard work as well. But that's good. I'm quite enjoying it. We did manage a couple of days camping. One of Dave's old clients, a lovely lady called Anna, sold her family home. Her kids have grown up and moved away. So she was just having a massive clear out and downsizing. And she brought in her family tent and gave it to us. Now, Dave and I love the outdoors and camping and cycling and hiking and all of that, but we haven't been able to do so much since we had the kids and we had the business. So Anna gave us this massive family tent, absolutely free. And that meant that we could go away. So we headed up to Hay-on-Wye, which is basically, technically it's English, actually it's in the middle of Wales. It's right on the borders, it's sort of in Powys. And we found a beautiful campsite right next to the River Wye, literally 20 metres from the river. So the children were swimming and the dog was in there as well. And we were all there for the Saturday and the Sunday. And then I headed back on the Monday because I had to work some shifts, and Dave stayed until Tuesday afternoon with the children. So they had a lovely time. But the amount of mess that camping generates. We came back and emptied the cars and I did 9 loads of laundry. 9 loads of laundry. Absolutely insane. So that was good fun. Jennie and I have been working on the knit tea retreat things. We've had a couple of nice days together. We've recorded some podcasts together, so that's the other reason I haven't been recording on my channel. I've been busy doing stuff for the retreat. So if any of you are interested, you can nip across to the retreat channel and watch those as well. I have recorded some little snippets of days out that we've had over the summer. We all went to the Vale of Glamorgan County Show, and I recorded some bits and pieces there. And I also took some film of when we were away camping. So I will put all that together into sort of a holiday vlog and put it up on my channel. It's more a family record for Dave and I. It's not specifically intended for you guys. So I'm not sure that the editing is going to be up to much. It is, as I said, a family record, but I thought you might be interested. So I thought, well, I'll make it public and you can watch. But there won't be show notes or anything like that. It's just, you can have a look if you like. Well, I think that is everything. This might have been a bit of a long one. And I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to record again. I will try and record again in 2 weeks. But as I mentioned, I've still got the kids off. I'm studying like a demon. The knitting retreat is getting closer. But I will absolutely do my best, even if I just pop in and it's a 20-minute catch up. So thank you for still being here when I did get around to recording. And thank you for watching today. If you liked watching it, please give me a thumbs up. It helps other people find the podcast. Makes me feel like there are people out there watching. And do click subscribe. One of the red buttons up there is subscribe. I'm so close to 3,000 subscribers. So close. I would really love to get there. And that's it. So thank you for watching. I hope you all get lots of crafting time. And I will see you soon. Bye.